Good evening. March 15th, had to look at it again. This school board meeting is called to order. If I could get Ms. Haddock to lead us through the pledge. And the inspirational reading.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. So in honor of spring making itself known with these warmer temperatures and all the pollen, I chose a poem inspired by spring called A Light Exists in Spring by Emily Dickinson. A light exists in spring, not present on the year, at any other period, when March is scarcely here. A color stands abroad on solitary fields that science cannot overtake, but human nature feels. It waits upon the lawn, it shows the furthest tree. Upon the furthest slope, it almost speaks to you. Then, as horizons step, or noons report away, without the formula of sound, it passes and we stay. A quality of loss affecting our content, as trade has suddenly encroached upon a sacrament, a light exists in spring. Thank you.
Thank you. Can't wait for spring, absolutely. Are there any additions or modifications to the agenda? Okay. We will move on to recognition, and Mr. Childress is going to lead us through the Poquoson High School Senior of the Month. So if I could have the Senior of the Month come forward.
The March Student of the Month is a young lady who you may find with her nose in the books and her toes in the water. She excels academically and is a student at the Governor's School of Science and Technology. Her efforts have earned her a place in the National Honor Society, the Science Honor Society, and Mu Alpha Theta. When she is not involved in academics, this girl is in the water, either sailing or swimming. She is a co-captain of the sailing team and has been a member of the Poquoson High School swim team since 9th grade. She also plays varsity lacrosse in a nearby district. This young woman has also volunteered a considerable amount of time through her church as well as through service organizations such as Klee Cub, where she is currently the president. During the summer months, she has been employed as a sailing instructor through the Parks and Recs. She plans to attend a 4-year college in the fall, where she would like to continue her studies in biological science. Please join me in congratulating our March Student of the Month, Miss Eleanor Patterson.
Okay, thank you. Eleanor's not able to be here tonight apparently, so we will get this to her. And then the next one we have tonight is the Poquoson High School Chorus. So if you ladies want to come forward, I'll read about you and then give you your certificates, and then we will get y'all to do the presentation. So the chorus members are Cheyenne Walker. Cheyenne is a freshman at Poquoson High School who was selected to attend All Virginia Chorus as the soprano first delegate. She has been in choir since 6th grade and has made district chorus and All Virginia choir in 7th grade as well. She is currently in the Harmonettes choir at Poquoson High School. She plans to pursue music in college. Next, we have Anna Hubbard. Anna Hubbard is a senior at Poquoson High School who was selected to attend All Virginia Choir as Soprano 1, District 8 First Delegate. She also participated in VCDA's Honors Choir her senior year, District Choir since the 7th grade, as well as an All Virginia Workshop Choir. She is in the Tri-M Music Honor Society Vice President, as well as the Soprano Vocal Captain of Evolution, where she's been a member for 3 years, as well as 2 years in concert choir and 2 years in Harmonettes Women's Choir. She plans to pursue music post-graduation. Rebecca Mbashiani is a senior at Poquoson High School who was selected to attend the Virginia All-State Choir as an Alto 1 delegate. She is the alto vocal captain of Evolution Show Choir and has been in school choir since the 3rd grade, participating in district choir since 8th grade. All-State Choir her junior year and Honors Choir her senior year. She is the historian of the Tri-M Honor Society and will be playing Justice in Poquoson High's upcoming musical, Rock of Ages. Rebecca is excited to be attending JMU in the fall to major in music. Meredith Woodruff is a sophomore at Poquoson High School who was selected as an alternate for the Virginia All-State Choir as a soprano, too. She has been more involved with chorus since the 4th grade at her former school. She performed in the variety show at Poquoson Middle School, including multiple singing and dancing solos. She was also selected for district chorus in 7th and 8th grade. Last year, she was a member of the Harmonettes and joined the Evolution Show Choir this year. She has been on the honor roll every year since elementary school and was a member of the National Junior Honor Society at Poquoson Middle School. Meredith is also very active in sports, where she is a member of the Poquoson High School volleyball, basketball, and tennis teams. She is currently undecided about where she would like to attend college. Thanks. Go ahead.
Soprano 2.
Y'all did wonderful. Great job, ladies. Shane? Anna?
Yes, hi.
Their chorus teacher was not able to be here tonight, so y'all did amazing without her too. Rebecca? Great job. And last but not least is Meredith. Great job, ladies. Y'all did phenomenal. Next, moving on to presentations and reports. First up is Mr. Tillett with their Superintendent's Report.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and thank you again, ladies. What an incredible song tonight. You guys are amazing. You know, I was their substitute a few weeks ago in class. Actually, you ladies were not in there because it was a B day, A day, the opposite day. And so I missed you guys in there that day, but I've been in and out of their class several times and was able to go over and see them perform at Grafton High School that night, and they are amazing. I told them when I first heard them sing at the Run for the Bulls that I was going to be their promoter, and I'm still waiting on a contract to be signed so I can get to work on that. But great job, ladies. Appreciate that. Before we get started tonight, I want to show off our new poster here. Those of you who don't know this is Emma Hammond, and she's in Miss Taylor's 3rd grade class at the elementary school, and this is part of our promotional material that we're taking with us as we're on recruiting trips, and we'll talk about a little more tonight. So excited to show that off a bit. Before I get started on my new slide is not up there. Oops. Well, sorry. I edited this right before the meeting and it's not there. Before we get started on our presentation tonight, I have a special presentation I'd like to make. We want to say thank you to somebody who's been a really great partner for us in Poquoson and across the region, actually. She serves us as the liaison for the military families in our community, working for Langley Base specifically, and keeps our military families connected with our schools. And I met her. She was one of the first few people I met when I got here and have fallen in love with her. I think she's amazing. She does great work. I can pick up the phone, call her anytime, and ask her to do anything for us. She even recruited bus drivers and substitutes for us earlier this year. Got approval from the command to send those requests out, and I think we ended up yielding an applicant from her work there. But she's amazing, and she's leaving us. So I'm very disappointed in that, but she's going to be closer to family. But please welcome Tammy Edwards up to accept the certificate of thank you for all of her work. Come on up, Tammy. We so appreciate all your work and efforts, and we're going to miss you. Thank you. If we could get a picture real quick. Okay, thank you again. Appreciate it. I'm planning on this being my last COVID-19 report to the board. I know y'all are getting tired of hearing it. This is brief, and it's all good news. So we are, as you know, sending out a weekly report. So we'll continue to update you on all things COVID with our numbers through our Friday reports that you guys can read at your leisure. But we think we're on the downswing of this thing and want to move on to talking about other things. So good news is our numbers are very low. We haven't seen numbers like this in months. You'll see that we're still technically insubstantial, but that's simply because that 9.8 positivity rate needs to drop below 5, and it will in the next week or so. We're pretty confident. And you'll see as you look at these numbers just how radically COVID spread has changed in the last few weeks. The highest point in the pandemic was mid-January, and we reported at 2,007 per 100,000 cases. That's astronomical COVID numbers. We then saw as quickly as it rose, it dropped, and we're down to 65.3 per 100,000, which again is numbers we haven't seen since last year. The PCR rate went up around 40 at its peak, which again was higher than we saw back in April when the pandemic was surging again. And that number has dropped to 9.8, and like I said, we expect that number to be below 5 in the next days or weeks. The weekly report that we send out to you folks, you'll see that we haven't had any cases this week populate in Poquoson schools, and only 16 cases in the last month, and 79 cases since we changed our mitigation strategies on the 24th of January. So those numbers are very favorable, and because of that, I think this is my last report unless I hear from you guys otherwise. We will continue to implement the layered strategies that we've been doing. Some of this is just good practice. We'll probably be doing this right on. Cleaning with special chemicals that keep us safer. We will continue using our air filtration systems that we've invested in. Cleaner air is always good. Hand washing, respiratory etiquette, we'll continue to train our kids and faculty on that. Our leadership team is going to meet in the next week or so and talk in more detail about RUVNA. the message we send out every morning to families. We're still going to promote that everybody should be screening themselves or their children in the morning before they come to school, make sure we're not exhibiting symptoms that could be contagious. And we're still encouraging anyone who has contagious symptoms, stay home till you get well, and we'll certainly catch you up academically. But we have heard a lot of feedback from our staff and families that it's really an annoyance now to get that text every morning. So we're probably going to suspend that unless we hear any objection from you otherwise. It was not something that required board approval in the original mitigation strategies, so we didn't feel the need to bring it back as a formal approval. But unless I hear otherwise from members of the board, we are probably going to be suspending RUBNA in the next days or weeks. So,
Mr. Tillett,
Yes,
will that also include the screening that the teachers are doing out and about, doing the temperature checks?
All of that.
All that will be eliminated?
all of that will be eliminated, yeah. And now we're still going to continue to remind folks, check yourselves, call us if you have questions. We're still going to be testing. We have ample testing, so if anyone has a question, whether they have COVID, they can test with us for free, and those other layered mitigations. But we're thinking the morning routine, it does take a lot of staff and a lot of time and energy. And so I heard it pretty loud and clear from our TAC, Teacher Advisory Committee meeting last week before. And so we're going to talk through all of that, and chances are we're moving away from the morning screenings on our end. So to move on to other efforts, you don't have educator shortage. Or am I not picking up? Sorry. We are in a national educator shortage. They keep telling me I have to stand in a certain spot, and I'm not very good at that. And larger school divisions have started to feel this pressure earlier. We, of course, network with other school divisions all around the region, the state, and the nation. And larger school divisions have started to see this strain in finding enough employees to staff their system within the last several years. We're just now starting to feel it in smaller divisions, and especially in places like Poquoson that are somewhat of an anomaly. I joke all the time that I work for the only free private education system in America. We do function very much like a private school system. We're able to meet the needs on a very individual basis for our kids. And, but we're now starting to feel it. We are, as a response to that, we are trying all kinds of new and innovative things in addition to bringing back some old school recruiting techniques. Several years ago in Poquoson, the division decided to not attend recruiting fairs. We did it as well in Dare where I was working, and a lot of school divisions around. We just weren't, we couldn't feel like for the effort and the time and energy and cost that we were yielding enough people. But we're back at it again because we can leave no stone unturned to try to recruit the very best educators for our kids. So Dr. Hill and Dr. Ratliff have been attending recruiting fairs already. They've been to Radford and ODU and George Mason in the last couple of weeks. Talked to a few folks, and it's kind of one at a time. Even if we yield one teacher that's high quality out of these efforts, it's worth it. So we are recruiting. These are just some statistics out there. That both of those statistics are extremely alarming, that our current teachers are re-examining if they're in the right profession or not. It's been, especially during COVID, this has been a challenging time for our educators. And the fact that the unfilled teacher positions have risen to 62% is astronomical. I was talking to a fellow superintendent from around from just down the way here in a large school division who has had 121 positions unfilled all year. Now, I can't really imagine that, especially with the shortage in substitutes. I'm not sure how you function around that. But those challenges are real, and now we're starting to feel them in Poquoson. We have invested in some new materials like this. We've got promotional video that I want to call out. Kelly Purdy has been working feverishly on building this package of tools that we can take out places and send electronically to, again, step up our game in trying to recruit the very best. We're going to play you just one of these promotional videos. It's quick, just so you can see some of the kind of things we're using out there. We're using this on lots of levels, certainly social media, our website. These are playing reel to reel when we're at recruiting fairs, so you can get a little taste of what these videos look like. Oh, I'm on the wrong slide. I'm sorry. That drone footage was taken by a local guy, and he allowed us to use it. I think it's incredible.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but
That's
if
true.
you want to write essays that inspire,
Let's go ahead and play the teacher one as well. I think it's a little different, but worth viewing.
I really like the people here at Poquoson. I really get to be the best version of myself here, and I really enjoy that.
working at Poquoson City Public Schools has afforded me the opportunity to build connections, not just with my coworkers and my students, but with their families and with the community. One of the things that I like best about teaching in Poquoson is the fact that we help our students become lifelong learners and global citizens.
What I love about the Poquoson school system is the family atmosphere you feel here, both within the school system and the community itself. We moved to Poquoson because of the Poquoson school system, and the camaraderie you feel within the school system and the whole community itself is just amazing.
As you can see, they're just some examples of our efforts to try to get out there and be competitive. We're starting this earlier than normal. Normally the hiring season starts a little later, but we're trying to get ahead of it. We're making those connections with the universities to try to get into the chain, if you will, of their thinking about places to land. And so far from these efforts, we've been able to hire 10 new substitutes. We've just hired a new bus driver, one more paraprofessional, a nurse, 3 teachers, and a maintenance worker just in the last 35 days. The other thing that Kelly's been working on is exploring the algorithms of social media. And that's a kind of an intricate, detailed process because you expand your range and then measure how many hits you get. And as we continue to do that, we're trying to find that place of diminishing return because there's a cost involved. It's nominal cost, but we're trying to get out there as wide as we can and then measure how much activity we get primarily on our website. So that work is happening. As well, we're trying to highlight through snippets and vignettes and announcements all the exciting things going on in our schools all the time. I say constantly, if we don't tell our story, nobody's going to know about all the amazing things that go on here. I, quite honestly, searched when I was exploring Poquoson to consider coming here to try to find out what this place is about. And we do amazing things. We don't always tell our story so well. So we're trying to step that game up to make sure people know all of the exciting things going on in Poquoson. We are working on now a new website renovation. The current platform is no longer serviced by the company. So anything that would need to be updated and repaired, they no longer sponsor. So we're going to have to do this upgrade at some point anyway, and we're going to be exploring products out there to see which is best for us. We do know that, at least for public education, that's a primary place people search about you, whether they're talking about bringing their kids to enroll or whether they're thinking about coming to join our team and work with us. Our website's important. So we're going to be working on that. We do know that we've seen around 300,000 hits on our website in this past year, so that's significant traffic. We're going to be adding additional drone footage. We're going to be doing virtual tours of our schools so that people can actually explore what the school looks like. It'll be exciting to let everybody crawl through virtually this new middle school. It's beautiful. It's going to be an amazing space to learn. We want to cover our sports and clubs and organizations more broadly. And we want to have instructional highlights, things going on in our classrooms that are innovative and exciting, especially as we go through our strategic planning and have a lot of things to talk about that are new and different. So we want to tell our story and be our own best cheerleaders. And I think that's it. The drone footage is not going to play? That's all right. More drone footage. Kind of getting excited, geeking out about drone footage. Questions? All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tillett. Up next with the instructional update is Dr. Hill.
Sorry.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, Mr. Tillett, members of the board. Tonight I'd like to share just a brief presentation highlighting some of our work in curriculum and instruction. So I'm excited to say that we are moving forward with our Teacher of the Year process. So that information went out to our building administrators, and nominees have been solicited from staff and individuals. Okay, thank you. So I've provided an overview for you here. Nominee information has been provided to the staff, and then what they'll do is they make nominations And then there is a ballot that will be created based off those nominations, and there'll be a window for secret voting. And then principals will submit the name of each school's Teacher of the Year to the central office by April 1. And then mid-April, the superintendent will visit schools to congratulate the winners and recognize them. And then on April 19th, each school's Teacher of the Year will be recognized at that school board meeting that evening. The Kiwanis, we appreciate their collaboration and support, and they are very generously going to be providing each Teacher of the Year with a $250 check. And then at that board meeting, we will be announcing the overall Poquoson City Public Schools Teacher of the Year. So. In terms of instruction, we are looking at addressing the learning loss that we've experienced as a result of being in a pandemic the last 2 years. So I have a cohort of individuals who are going to be attending a literacy conference up in Northern Virginia Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of this week, and we're going to be meeting with vendors to look at what the research-based best practices are, what intervention materials are available. We'll be attending sessions to gather professional development ideas, et cetera. I also have a team of individuals from the division who are researching math intervention materials for us to consider. We're also looking at restorative practices and planning professional development in that arena, as well as trauma-informed training, social emotional learning, those kinds of things to provide support to our staff and students. We are already, believe it or not, planning our summer academy as well as our extended school year, so we have those dates identified, and Emily Forrest has been doing a great job pulling a team together and working out the logistics for that program. We're scheduling SOL testing. And as Mr. Tillett said, we've been attending recruiting fairs, and that's been really fun to actually meet prospective candidates, talk with them, tell them what a great place it is to work in Poquoson, and hopefully hire some wonderful talent. And then we're also in preparation for back to school in August. We're planning our professional development, and our goal is to have that planned, signed, sealed, and delivered, and disseminated to staff prior to their departure for the summer break. So Mr. Tillett has some great ideas. On the convocation day, we're looking at maybe bringing some food trucks in, having a longer lunch break. We would all be on one campus at the high school. We have a staff member who has a son who's a budding DJ, so just make it a fun and invigorating welcome back to a new school year. Since we receive federal grant money, we actually have 2 monitoring visits that I just wanted to make you aware of. We have a Title IV-A monitoring visit on March 24th, and those funds are used specifically for student support academic enrichment. And then we have a visit in late April regarding Title II-A, and that is for staff training and recruiting. And then, to start the process off, on March 30th, the VDOE is going to be bringing representatives from Region 2 and some surrounding school divisions, and they're going to be outlining future grant opportunities that we then as a division can look at and determine areas where we think we might be able to apply for funding to support programs in our schools. And then we have recently found out about a DODEA grant. We have one currently in place in the division, and they are putting those solicitations out to school divisions that have a large population of military-connected students, which we do. And we are looking at the requirements and the areas that you can apply for are in literacy, mathematics, and STEM. So we're looking at hopefully being able to fund some programs through those grant funds that we wouldn't normally be able to support. We're moving along, as you know, with the strategic planning process. Prior, we have an electronic survey that was disseminated to parents, students, staff, community members. We have focus groups that were facilitated by K-12 Insight, and they identified a random selection of staff, students, and parents for those focus groups. And then Mr. Tillett and I have been going out to community groups that are outlined here, and we've been talking to them about what are we doing well in Poquoson, what are some areas where maybe we need to focus, and then what are some innovations that we should consider moving forward. So that's been very exciting to hear that feedback. And we currently still do have an active survey on our website. So if anyone, staff, students, parents, administrators, community members, if anyone would like to provide us with feedback, you can go on the website, and it's actually in 2 locations. You can look under popular links and click there to get to a page that will provide you an opportunity for input, and then the Let's Talk icon that's on the lower left-hand side of the screen. And then once we have that input, then we will be coming to the board in a work session in the April meeting to share with you the feedback that we've received thus far and talk about what big pockets that should go in, and that would start the framework for a roadmap to move forward. And of course, I'm going to leave this QR code up for a moment, but we have shared this with administrators, with our community groups. Anyone who's interested can certainly use that QR code that will also take you to a link where you can provide feedback. So, any questions? I guess I can go back to that screen. Okay, thank you.
Up is Dr. Ratliff with an operations update for us.
Good evening, Mr. Tillett, Madam Chair Hazel, and board members. Tonight, I'm going to review the proposed school calendar for the 22-23 school year, give an update on solar, and give you an update on the Poquoson High School pickup drop-off loop. First, the school calendar. So this year we had a substantial amount of input into our calendar. I would say that we've had more input than any time that I've worked in the division, which I believe this is 8 years now. We began it with the Teacher Advisory Committee this year and got their input. The school division leadership team, as well as the overall administrative team, worked with each other to refine dates from there. From that point, the principals took it back to their schools leadership teams, who in turn should have talked with their principal or their respective teachers within their departments or grade levels, whatever the setup may be per school. And then they brought that back to us for the final input within what we put in the calendar and the dates. I will note the recommendation that we are making based on all of the input that we have is for draft option A, which is the post-Labor Day start. Several of the school divisions around us are beginning on a pre-Labor Day start with a 4-day prior to Labor Day opening. We didn't make a decision based on what the other divisions were doing. Our decision was primarily based on the input that we got from our teachers and from what we thought was in the best interest of the students. And we didn't really see anything that, based on academic needs, that would benefit us, which I'll go into a little bit of detail about. One note that I'll make now that I don't have in the presentation is draft option B, which I put in as if we did go to the 4-day pre-Labor Day start, as some of the other divisions around us are doing. It is only a calendar that has 180 days in it. We have to get 180 days in per state code, and we typically will try to build in 2 additional days and have 182 days. It's been several years since we've been able to do that, and we've had 181 days. The benefit of doing that is if we have flooding, snow, anything like that, we have some days that we don't have to turn around and make up because the additional days are already built into the calendar. I guess the one worry that we've been fortunate this year because the state still allowed for virtual learning, so we have been able to take advantage of that. However, they granted that extension on on the basis of this year, so we don't know if that's something they'll continue to do moving forward. So the state, when the law changed several years ago, it was a little bit confusing as to the specifics as to when you can start. School divisions that live in areas of really bad weather, and they base that on an average of how many days you miss each year, have a waiver to this. So the divisions in the western part of the state, they'll typically start earlier. Most all of those have a waiver due to the fact that they run into a lot of snow and winter weather and miss a lot of days. So if they don't start earlier, they're going to go to school all summer in order to get their days in. You either have to be a division that misses those days or adjacent to a division that misses those days and have some sort of a shared program. So when the law changed that did allow for a pre-Labor Day start, they were pretty clear on some of the specifics. You can start 15 days prior to Labor Day, including counting weekends, and the Friday before and the Monday after Labor Day, the students have to have off. You could use it as a work day if you need to, for teachers if you need to get that day in, but there are days that can't count as instructional days. All in all, if you were to back your calendar up as far as you could and take advantage of all of the 15 days, you essentially gain 9 days, in 9 instructional days, 9 student days to the calendar. That's what the 15 days equates to. For us, at the end of the winter break, that would give us 79 days. A semester obviously would typically be half of the school year, which is 90 days. We have flexibility in that. We could go down to about 85 days, but honestly, we need to be closer to 90, and there's no way we could go below 85 and still feel good about getting all of your content in. So when we looked and we saw at a maximum we could only gain up to 79 days, and years ago when this first came into play, it was a part of the discussion. The academic benefit of the pre-Labor Day start for us is concluding the semester at winter break. We're nowhere really near that we can even do that. And again, that was a part of the discussion a few years ago also. One of the reasons that some of the other school divisions are starting the 4 days early is so that they can transition students back to school within a shorter week. And to be perfectly honest, between Mr. Tillett and myself, that's really about the only reason that we've heard from the other divisions as to their reasoning for doing that. If we began 4 days prior to, that's the Monday prior to Labor Day, that's going to bring our semester to 74 days. So again, when you look at instructionally benefiting us, it really doesn't get us where we need to be. When we talked to the Teacher Advisory Committee, only one of the members on the entire committee voted for the pre-Labor Day start. And the reasoning that she gave for that really wasn't an overall calendar issue. It was more of a grade level issue, which we are going to address within the school, within the grade level, and it's honestly pretty easily fixed in what her concerns were. The reasoning that the other TAC members gave us for going with the post-Labor Day start was that there really was not a benefit if we could not get to the point of ending the semester at Christmas break, or winter break, excuse me. When the law changed several years ago, we did put out a survey that parents, students, teachers filled out. And the survey has several questions. It asks several questions around the beginning and the calendar. It didn't outright ask, when would you rather begin? But the input that we had on that survey was actually very strong toward we don't need to do a pre-Labor Day start. I can remember in a work session, even the discussion with the school board was at this point, there's no way we would touch this. So that's where we were. I'm guessing that was 3 to 4 years ago, if memory serves me correctly. TAC members were in favor of keeping the half days. If you remember last year, or this year, this year, we repurposed our half days in order to get some more professional development time for the teachers, whereas last year we used the Wednesdays so that they could do that. The members were in favor of keeping that set up, and it has proven to be very beneficial. The one thing that they did want was a little bit more say in when the days were, so that is one thing that we concentrated on, and I think we got some more consistency in what we have also. New teachers, we are bringing back 2 days earlier. Their first day, based on the recommended calendar, would be August 15th. and that is 4 days prior to returning teachers coming back. Typically, they've only come back 2 days early. What we have found is we really can't get the new teachers everything they need, plus time to get acclimated to the school, to work in their rooms in those 2 days. As more and more technologies come, more and more training needs to be done to show people how to use the systems that we have in place. And 2 days was really just kind of a push for everyone. Similar to that, we made the schedule for returning teachers to come back 2 days early also. So they would come back 10 days early rather than 8 days early. And really the reasoning for this is basically the same thing, except they don't need all of the initial training on our systems. There are still a lot of refreshers that we have to do yearly. There are mandated things that we have to do each year. And if you've been in this profession, you know there's just a lot of work up front that teachers have to do, and they have very little time built in that they can work in their classrooms. So we hope by bringing them back those 2 days early, some of the professional development that we do throughout the school year, some of the professional development that we do at mid-year, we're going to be able to pull into the beginning of the year. So if we can do that, hopefully it's going to save throughout the year on the teachers. As I discussed earlier, the Teacher Advisory Committee had said that they wanted the half-days included in this calendar as we had changed at the beginning of this year to give them more professional development time, collaborative planning time. And I think Mr. Tillett used the term repurposed the days. We didn't add any half-days to the calendar. We took all of the half-days that were in the calendar and rearranged it where it was a little bit more conducive to the needs of the staff members professionally. One of the changes that we have within this calendar was to give that a consistent day throughout the calendar. And for the most part, it is on Wednesdays, and for the most part, it's the third Wednesday of the month. Not in all cases, but in most cases. And again, we did have the teacher input on those days, which days we were going to use them, and honestly, we had a pretty good bit of discussion about all of the days and how they laid out. I'm not going to read off all of the days, but I will make note of the last comment that I have there. It's 11 total half-days, and that is including homecoming, and that's the same amount of half-days that we currently have in this schedule. So essentially, we've done the same thing. We've taken those same half-days that we typically have in and repurposed them. Other days of note, our homecoming early dismissal day. Friday, November 11th is a no school for students day. That will be a day for parent-teacher conferences. The last few years, we followed that model on Veterans Day. Wednesday, February 8th will be a division professional development day. Our professional development day this year that was in between the two semesters, where first and second semester, really went well. We had really good feedback with the format of it from the teachers and how everything went, and it could have easily gone for an entire day. We've intentionally scooted this day out past the end of the semester because what we don't want is it to conflict with all of your end of semester activities and times. We really wanted a day that we could devote to professional development. Initially, we did not have anything in between semesters, but again, with the feedback that we got from the teachers, they said they felt like it was important to have that. So now we do have an early dismissal day laid out in between the two semesters for the teachers and the students. And the only other thing that I'll note here is Wednesday, March 8th, we have for parent-teacher conferences and a professional development day as a half day for students. This is a newer day for us. What we have seen and listening to what the teachers have told us, especially at the elementary and primary levels, they really need a time within that second semester when they can talk to parents and things that are going on. So that is one we've also added in that's a little bit different than we've historically done. The exam half-days we've taken out of the schedule, and one of the things that we're going to do is focus a lot more on quarterly assessments and really what are best practices now, the quarterly assessments, SOLs and things like that. The last day of school is an early dismissal on Friday, June 16th, as well as graduation, and then the following Monday is a teacher work day on June 19th. holidays. We did get the 3-day Thanksgiving break in. We were able to get the full 2-week Christmas or winter break in. Again, as we followed since I've been here, Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, President's Day, and their spring break, which always on the peninsula area schools falls in that first week of April, and then again Memorial Day on the May 29th. Now, getting into solar, and when I get done, if you have questions, we'll get it on all of them. But we've had some real developments on solar. I think we mentioned a couple of meetings ago that some changes had come about. So we really wanted to review where we were, where we are now, what changes there were, and why these changes came about. So initially, we put an RFP out for solar services, which also included replacing roofs on at least the high school and the primary school. We went through the process, we selected a vendor to go with, and we were in the process of working out a contract with the vendor. The bid had not actually been awarded. At the time of a contract being signed is when the bid would have actually been awarded to the contractor that we had chosen to go with. But around the same time as we got the contract back from our attorneys with the recommended changes, we got a call from the vendor telling us that their proposal costs would rise. So essentially, we had some real questions about that, and we wanted to see exactly why they were going to rise. They told us not only would ours rise, they told us that people they had existing contracts with, the costs were even rising due to the same factors that they had told us. We would have had solar panels on the high school, the middle school, and the primary school with this vendor. This vendor would not put panels on the elementary school. And essentially, this vendor and the other vendor have a little bit different thinking. You want to capture at least 30% of the solar energy. I think you have to capture at least 30% of the solar energy if you're going to use solar panels. The amount of solar that you can capture on the elementary school is in the mid-30s. So in terms for this vendor, it wasn't, for lack of better words, the risk wasn't worth the reward in what they could capture with the amount of solar that you could get back out of that. The roofs would have been replaced on the high school and the primary school, and over 25 years, we would have paid approximately 7% to 9% more when you look at the PPA payments yearly, the electric bill payments, and the solar energy credits as compared to what our average electric bill is on a monthly basis now. Okay? So that really was a pretty good deal. We were paying about 7% more a month, and over 25 years, we were paying for 2 roofs to go on schools and getting the solar credits on top of that. So the reason that we have been able to find for the changes, your construction labor increases, and they say it has increased by approximately 15%. Raw material increases, in particular with these solar panels, you're looking at copper, PVC, and steel. Shipping cost increases, and then the solar panel tariff extension. That was scheduled to end in February of 22, and the International Trade Commission voted to extend that another 4 years. So that will be, it began at 30 and stepped down 5% a year until it got to 15%. The next 4 years, it begins at 15%, and it'll step down 0.25% and get to 14 at the end of this 4 years. So, where we're at now. We asked this initial vendor and the vendor that got second when we evaluated the RFPs to give us some revised costs for their proposals to see exactly where we would stand with both. Again, we hadn't awarded the bid, we hadn't signed a contract, so we still had some flexibility in that. So after we received the revised numbers, the initial vendor's costs rose substantially. They were figured over a 30-year period, which 25 years is to 30 years. That's not a big deal. The warranty on the roof that we're getting was also over a 30-year period. That was extended, so that wasn't such a big deal. The yearly costs that were associated with this vendor increased approximately 20%. However, the total costs that we were going to pay in the end of 30 years had almost doubled. We were somewhere around 900,000 after 30 years, and again, that's right at doubled, essentially, is what we were looking at. This plan would have given us a new roof on the high school and the primary school with their revised plan, still the same two roofs. So the other vendor, they took a little bit different approach. They actually reworked their whole plan, and I was very upfront when we spoke with them. They knew cost was going to be an issue, and that was one thing that we were really relying on and looking at. So they reworked their plan, and essentially from the beginning to end, they brought in bigger solar panels so they could capture more energy, so they would try to offset the increased cost from what I shared with you earlier. So what we found in that was they were over a 30-year period also. Their total cost was only about 15% over what the initial cost was from the other vendor, and they were going to do the elementary school as well. And what would come with that was a roof on the primary school, the elementary school, and the high school. While the elementary school technically year-wise wouldn't be ready for a roof now, a part of their deal was putting solar on there. You're not going to put solar on there for a roof you have 10 years left to go with, so they would go ahead and redo all three roofs, and we would have a 30-year warranty for all three of those roofs. So their total price wasn't that bad. However, their yearly price is what really hit on that. And over the first 14 years, you really yearly saw a 20% to a 4 times increase over what our average electric bill is monthly. So it really kind of put it out of reach. In year one, we were paying a little over 4 times what the average utility bill would be when you look at the PPA payments and everything included. Now, when you got down to year 20, we actually would see a gain, but you had to get that far before you can actually capture that gain. So from that point, Mr. Tillett and I went to the city manager and the city finance office and reviewed the plans with them. I think neither the city nor us really felt really good about either plan at this point. When you look at all of the factors combined as one, each plan had its good points, but neither really had all of the pieces that we needed. So what we've done now is we've gone back to both companies, and we have asked them to give us yet a different plan. And with this plan, we've asked to replace one roof. And to be perfectly honest, we've asked them specifically for the primary school because their roof is in pretty poor condition right now, worse than the high school is. And what we were looking at doing was potentially putting a roof on, putting solar on that, and putting solar on the middle school. And really, the wording that we have given them is we want either a cost neutral or a cost positive savings when we're coming to what we're paying yearly over our average utility bill. When prices decrease in the future as things start to come back down, that would still give us room to have another solar agreement to hopefully get another roof on the high school and still recoup some of the savings with the solar energy over the electric costs. So at this point, we are waiting on both of them to get back with us about that, okay? One final thing, no construction update this month. I had too much. Talk a little bit about the pickup and drop-off loop that we talked about at the high school. So we had an estimate come out from a contractor that we've used many, many times over the years, one that's reliable and trustworthy and we know does good work. And their estimate was over $500,000 to get the work done. The engineering cost was significant. The material costs have risen, in particular, anything petroleum-based, so you're kind of getting it from both sides right there with the petroleum and the other raw materials that are involved in that. But the engineering costs were really where I think the big surprise came in, and basically back there at the drainage was the worry. No one's going to touch, what they told me is no one would touch anything back there until you did have the engineers come in and work through the plans of what you needed. So what we are going to do now is we're going to put out an RFP for that to see if it still can be done. Hopefully we'll get some bids with other vendors that their costs come in lower. But If not, then we'll come back to the drawing board with that. So, any questions?
Didn't we anticipate an allocated budget of around 175,000 for that project?
175 is what we were allocated. When Steve had worked the numbers up on that, I guess it was very early in the school year. The numbers that he worked up there's two factors that really impacted the cost. The amount of materials were accurate in what we needed between the substrates and then the asphalt, but between the cost going up with materials, the petroleum costs, and then the engineering work was really the one that I think that where there was a bit of a disconnect in the amount that was going to take and how it was described to me. I don't know that the contractor that I met with even anticipated the amount of engineering that was going to have to go into it when I first talked to them.
Got a quick question on your calendar. So you mentioned the pre-Labor Day start, and you gave us several reasons to not do that. So why was that even considered?
We knew that several divisions around us were going that way, so we just wanted you all to have as much information as possible when we came to meet.
Was there a survey sent out to the community or staff?
We have not had a formal survey, just I guess all of the meetings that we've had.
I want to say it was last year, and I thought the feedback was pretty positive. I want to say that our last day of school was typically that Thursday before Friday graduation. I know that was well received by our staff, especially at the high school. It looks like there's a 91-day semester calendar there. Is there a potential, barring any, major catastrophes that would warrant, delays?
So when you build the calendar and you have 181, 182 days in it, historically, I think really what every school division that I know of is when you get to the end of the calendar, if you still have those days banked, typically we'll take that many days off the end of the year. So if that were the case in this year and we went with that calendar and we had 181 days, likely school would end on a Thursday there. But what you're talking about also varies from year to year. When I was a principal at the high school, I know we had the case where we ended on the day that we had graduation, so that kind of depends upon how the calendar plays out and the days that you miss and the weather throughout the course of the year. But yes, anything over and above that you would give back.
Dr. Ralph, you mentioned that the teachers like the Wednesday half-day. I don't know if there was any feedback from parents about another day or any complaints.
I haven't heard anything negative. That doesn't mean it's not there, but I have not heard anything negative.
I know from also in looking at the roof issue, solar, I believe, and I'll have to go back and pull our CIP program, but I know one of the things that we'd outlined over the course of the past couple of years was allocating funds towards those roof replacements. And I think we were under the impression that we were headed towards the solar route. I guess what is the backup in talking with Randy, if we have to come to another, kind of toggle and pivot? I mean, because I know the primary school, like you mentioned, is the number one priority.
I think we have to put this to rest first. If you calculate the numbers based on what we had, and it was, I guess, apples to apples, if we have these two schools at these costs, you actually would have a net gain yearly in what you have in your PPA payments, your solar banked, as compared to your average electric bill. And I do know both companies want our business. I do know that. So I haven't completely given up on that, but I think if this comes back and we're still not there, that's where we are going to have to figure out a plan.
I'd like to weigh in on that briefly. We're still committed to solar and replacing these roofs, and we're confident that both of those things go together and is the final process. It's just right now these costs have gotten astronomical, and so the companies we were negotiating with and the deal, so to speak, was going to be nominal cost and interest-free over 25 to 30 years and smart business to replace the roofs, and everybody's still committed to that. It's just right now, we believe we're in an inflated cost situation, oil and shipping primarily. And the tariff piece is another whole side that just weighed into this, and that all really changed after we've been talking about this. So after talking to the city manager, and we've been doing quite a bit of digging, we believe that it's smart to go ahead and take care of our number one priority, because we get almost a free deal with the middle school, because the roof is there. It's not a PPA process. They're going to put solar on those two roofs. We think the cost is going to come back in as a positive for us. In other words, we're going to capture more energy from the solar than to save us on our energy costs monthly, that we'll then bank and give back to, of course, the city in the process of acquiring enough money to go forward with the next project, which will be the high school. We do think this is going to happen fairly quickly. I don't think this is kicking that can down the road any longer. I'm not interested in doing that. And we haven't ruled out this other plan. It's just the cost right now to do the 3 additional roofs is almost $200,000, $170,000 additional money a year. And right now, it's just not worth that swing. We do believe we're going to see that go down a piece. Then we'll be back at the table with these two companies. Like Dr. Ratliff said, both companies want our business and are committed to this moving forward. And they understand. I mean, they're in the same boat we are. That it's cost. They're not in the roofing business. They're in the solar business. So it behooves them to put solar on buildings. That's how they make money. It doesn't matter the roof cost. They're just passing those on to us and spreading it, amortizing it, interest-free over 30 years.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Do we have any public comment for this evening? Okay, thank you very much. And I'm going to have Mr. Jordan walk us through the consent agenda, please.
On our consent agenda this evening, we have the approval of financial reports, the authorization to change appropriation to accept and expend funds in accordance with the attached request, the approval of personnel action, the approval of minutes for February's regular meeting and work session, and the approval for superintendents to sign a purchase agreement to purchase computers, docking stations, and monitors.
Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So move. Second.
Any discussion on these items?
Mr. Ingram.
Aye.
Mr. Goodale.
Aye.
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Childress.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan.
Aye.
Chair Helsel.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. Next is the other matters for consideration, and Mr. Ingram is going to bring to us about the consideration for the approval of proclamation for Military Child Month.
Whereas April is month of military child, a special month to recognize and pay tribute to military families and their children for their daily sacrifices made and for their commitment, courage, and unconditional support of our armed forces. And whereas Virginia has the highest number of active duty, school-aged children in the nation and has committed to be an active participant in the Interstate Compact on educational opportunity for military children, which facilitates military children transitioning in school systems across state lines. And whereas the children of our service members continue to make significant contributions to Poquoson City Public Schools, the nation, and our Commonwealth, despite prolonged and repeated absences for one or both parents. And whereas these children are a source of pride and honor to us all, and it is only fitting that we take the time to recognize their contributions, celebrate their spirit, and let our men and women in uniform know that while they are taking care of us, we are taking care of their children. And whereas April is month of the military child, a special month to recognize and pay tribute to military families and their children for their daily sacrifices made and for the commitment, courage, and unconditional support of our armed forces. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this 15th day of March in the year 2022 by the School Board of the City of Poquoson, Virginia, that the month of April 2022 be hereby celebrated as Military Child Month in all Poquoson City public schools.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram.
Thank you.
Anyone have a motion for the
I'll move that we make April Military Child Month as mission.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion about this? I know we do have a lot of military. Great. Would you like to call for a vote, please?
Mr. Ingram.
Aye.
Mr. Goodale.
Aye.
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Childress.
Aye.
Vice Chair Jordan.
Aye.
Chair Helsel.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. The next one is the consideration of approval of the 2022-2023 academic calendar that we just had a presentation on. We'll probably have some discussion on this, but would somebody like to make a motion for the,
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the 2022-23 proposed academic calendar.
I think it was A.
Second?
Any discussion about the calendar?
Yes. You know, nothing really, so we were presented with that pre-Labor Day start. Superintendent Tillett and I talked on the phone about that as the chair, Helsel and I. And from everything we just saw, there's no point in even mentioning or discussing.
Well, ultimately, what I would say to that is the calendar is a decision of the board by statute in Virginia. And our goal in presenting Calendar A was simply to give you the calendar that the committee we charged with investigating calendars, which did due diligence and studied pre and post Labor Day, which is really the only discussion. Everything else is pretty similar in both options. We just wanted to make sure that you had all the information we had in doing this, the research for calendar, using the committee of staff that have been in place in years past to vet calendar options and bring to you their recommendation. We don't, as an administrative team, you know, you're going to start school when you tell us to start, and we're going to finish when you tell us to finish. We couldn't find an academic reason to change the pattern that Poquoson had been on for many years of being a post-Labor Day. Virginia is known around the country, actually, as due to what's famously called the King's Dominion Law as a post-Labor Day start state, and has done very well academically with that calendar, as has Poquoson specifically. So we didn't find any academic reason to change the calendar. Therefore, we took the recommendation of the committee we put in place. We had no knowledge of any reason to change for academic reasons, so we brought that calendar as our recommended calendar. Being that, as Dr. Ratliff said, the area around us has, for whatever reason, decided to move toward a pre-Labor Day calendar. We believe, and I can't say this certainty, but we believe it's just a move to try to get their communities used to starting prior to Labor Day. So that in the event the law changes at some point and they can start with enough time to make it an academic reason to start early, like Dr. Ratliff said, where you can get first semester in prior to winter break. There is an academic reason to do that. But given that's not possible in the current calendar law, we couldn't find a reason to change. So that's why we promoted that calendar as our recommendation. However, we knew that you all were aware and would be aware of the area around us, and we have attempted in previous years to be on a similar calendar, although arguably that's never ever actually happened because different school divisions take different work days and they're not ever exactly the same. And sharing the New Horizons programming has worked around that very effectively in years past. If you'll recall, last year, 2 divisions on the peninsula started prior to Labor Day, and the other 4 divisions started after. This year, if we choose Calendar A, it would be reversed. Now, possibly, one of the divisions that started prior to Labor Day last year had their meeting, I believe, on Monday night and did not adopt a calendar. There was some discussion to not make that decision yet, which is also, and I'll just throw that out there, is something this board could consider. There is a motion on the table, but if you wanted to do that, again, we're, as a staff, not driving this decision. We just wanted you to have all the possible information you needed to make a good decision about calendar.
My concern, and why I brought it up, is I don't know that we have enough stakeholder feedback to make that decision for a pre-start. I mean, we've always done after Labor Day, so, I mean, there was no survey given to the community or staff or teachers, even though through the TAC committee, but still, some people may not have been represented. Something, just a one-question survey that said, hey, pre or post.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter if it's a community member or staff, you get data.
Absolutely, and that is absolutely something we can do very easily. Send out a quick survey if that's something the board would like us to do. We're not in a time crunch specifically to have a calendar selected. The earlier the better, certainly, so people can make plans, but we're way in advance of the major part of planning for next academic year. So if you wanted to entertain or ask us to do a survey, we could do that, bring it back on the April agenda for a vote. That's certainly something we can do. No problem with that at all.
I mean, I certainly don't mind doing that. I'd be hard pressed to think that this community, that 90+% would go with the post to Labor Day start. I mean, it's always been that way here in Poquoson. And again, having gone through the school system and lived here in the community, I think that Poquoson feels very strongly in that post-Labor Day start. I think one of Dr. Ratliff's comments was at a previous board meeting years ago when I remember saying, my gosh, if you think that some of these issues are contentious, try to make a pre-Labor Day start. So again, I have no problem, soliciting feedback, but I hate to speak on behalf of the community, but I'd be hard pressed to think that these numbers wouldn't come in excess of 90% for a post-Labor Day start. But that's one opinion. So I
kind of echo similar to Craig said. I don't know if, like you said, I don't think it's going to change. But you're looking at the stakeholders that were involved in the calendar making process, that there is no representation from the community. It's all teachers and administrators. So nobody was able to put input on the half days, the start days, those types of things. So I don't know, for now if we have to do it, but maybe going forward, the calendar committee would bring in, somebody from the PTA or something like that, just to have a second input so it doesn't feel like it's, they're not involved with it, that shared governance piece.
Agree to for not this year, but maybe next year. We just still, who knows when the community changes. And I would agree they probably don't, but we don't know, and us speculating is just not always the best.
It takes care of that. If they're on the committee, they're supposed to be the voice of
Electronic, so it should be easy to get.
Yeah, it's easy.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Especially since we fill out that thing for our students our kids every day. One survey instead of that would be way worth it.
So kind of combining everything here, I feel we should just vote for post, and then next year when you do it, do the survey, all that stuff for the pre-Labor Day start.
Absolutely. We can do both. If I'm hearing you correctly, just make sure I understand, we could certainly extend the calendar committee to include community members, parents, PTAs, and get that feedback as well, send out a survey when we start talking about calendar. So we'll have anybody in the community who wants to weigh in, we'll have that piece of data for you all to consider when we bring a calendar to you next year.
When is that's typically done this time of year?
It's usually done, we started, when do we have a calendar meeting with TAC? 2 months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. So it starts fairly early.
So maybe adding on the school board student representative?
Yeah.
Maybe?
That's a great idea. Put you to more work.
That's right.
Yeah, that's easy to do, and I think, and wise. So good suggestion.
So everybody's comfortable with that? Okay, good deal. All right, if you'll go ahead and please call for the vote.
Mr. Ingram.
Aye.
Mr. Goodale.
Aye.
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Childress.
All right.
Vice
Aye.
Chair Hustle.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. So, to everybody that's here tonight with us, you didn't realize that we were fitting 2 meetings into one night. So the next one, and I'm going to read a statement, is we are moving into our public hearing for our superintendent's proposed budget. So tonight, we have a public hearing on the superintendent's proposed budget for year '23. I want to open this public hearing if there's anyone who wishes to speak on the public hearing topic. Anybody? Okay. So, next up, we will have the consideration of approval of the superintendent's proposed budget for year '23. So,
And of course, I'm available for any questions. We did have a work session and went through the budget. I know you all have had opportunity to study it in great detail. The next process, and the other thing that's obvious is the General Assembly left Richmond without approving a budget. So this is something that does happen on a fairly regular basis, I'm told, in most states. But we are still pretty confident that the pieces that are in our budget are going to survive the next round of negotiation in Richmond. So we're still standing behind this budget. We think it's a good, solid budget. It has all the elements that we believe move us forward. And then, of course, the big ticket item is the 5% increase for our employees, which, in my opinion, never been more important.
is there a motion to approve the superintendent's proposed budget?
So move to adopt the superintendent's budget for 2023?
Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any additional discussion before we vote?
Yeah, I'd like to say something real quick about the proposed budget. Overall, I like it. Teachers, staff, they all deserve that raise. There is one line item that I don't like, but overall, it's good.
I have a question on, with the budget not passing, so the raises were based on a biennium budget, so the ones built in for this year, so that 5% is kind of like locked in, but there is a chance that they could go back and take that off the table, and it would be the second year, because that budget doesn't get approved, and that would be something we'd have to come up on our own, right?
It would be. We're only approving this school year's budget, so we're not approving a biennium budget. The General Assembly, if they approve their budget as it exists, there's 5 this year, 5 next year. Now, again, it's not uncommon for the General Assembly in their short session next year to come back and amend their budget. So they could take out the 5% or make that some other amount even then. But we operate only on an annual budget. So we're only approving the 5 for this year with no consideration for what happens next year, even though we believe and hope that the biennium budget passes in Richmond that will include a second 5% for year 24, 25, which would equate to a 15% pay increase for all of our employees over a 3-year period of time, which is unheard of, quite honestly. So that's all good news, but could all very easily change.
What's in this year's budget? Is it only a 2.5%?
Only 5 this year.
All right. So
Yeah,
it's
only 5 this year, and only for our budget, what you guys are approving tonight is a single-year budget for next year, including a 5% pay increase.
We're doing the max that the state is maxing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And as we talked about in the budget, and it's important for the public listening tonight to understand, that puts a serious challenge for our city council, who supports public schools, the schools in Poquoson, better than any city council or governing taxing authority body that I've ever heard of. But it's a significant amount of money. It's $452,000 additional increase to make that the city, the school side of that budget increase or pay raise come to fruition, because the formula only pays in state money for about half. So it's a $452,000 shortfall for the city of Poquoson. And that's real money. So it is a challenge, but we're hopeful that's going to work out. I know they're working very hard on the city side to make that happen. But that's all we're dealing with this year is this 5%. And then we'll come back to the drawing board during the budget cycle next year if, in fact, the biennium budget stands at another 5%.
I'm kind of interested in Mr. Ingram when he said about the line, he wasn't happy with that one line item. So if we approve this budget, all those numbers are just 100%? Can we come back later and find anything or change anything?
Well, yes and no. It becomes, once you approve this budget tonight, it becomes your budget. Right now, it's my budget. And in about 5 minutes, I hope to turn it over to you. And then it's your budget. You can do whatever you want to with it. And, as you know, we meet with the city in April and a joint meeting, and that's where the rubber really hits the road. By that time, we should know definitively what's going to happen with the overall budget and whether we can count on the state side of that. And then the city will be resolving whether they can afford the city side of our budget. And if both of those pieces happen, then the budget gets approved and we start earmarking money in July. But so any of those pieces in there that you want to amend, we can amend. And there's time to do that after your budget is adopted. So we can put it on an agenda. You can work with the chair to add it to an agenda to amend the budget at any meeting moving forward.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Mr. Ingram.
Aye.
Mr. Goodale.
Aye.
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Childress.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gordon.
Aye.
Chair Household.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead now and close the public hearing on the superintendent's proposed budget. And we'll move on to our communications and/or other matters by the school board.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Haddock.
So starting with the primary school. Since we last shared PPS news, we have kept very busy. Our students have wrapped up mid-year assessments and are pushing ahead to get ready for the next school year. They have made many new hands-on experiences such as digging for dinosaur bones and iPod and participating in healthy food tasting in our kindergarten PE classes. Many of these activities are enhanced by the money earned from our PEF grants and from PTO donations, and we are very grateful. During Read Across America Week, we hosted our first in-person book fair in a couple of years, and the students were thrilled to see all the new books. We had a great turnout at our family shopping night as well. We thank all our families for the money raised and the books donated to teacher libraries. That same week, we brought back our Real Men Read program, where we had several men from our community, our school board, and central office, and even our high school come in to read a class. Every classroom had at least one reader, and our students thoroughly enjoyed every person. PPS is continuing to build on our volunteer base by reinstating our volunteer reader program. Each teacher will have volunteers assigned to her classroom, and readers will come in to read high-interest books aloud to students. This provides additional exposure to and discussion around literature, another way to read all the books at PPS. The elementary school. March has been and continues to be a very busy month at PES. We begin the month with Read Across America Week. This year's theme was Read Across the Diverse Regions of the United States. Teachers read stories that highlighted different regions through the setting, characters, and story. Also, during Read Across America Week, 26 men from the Poquoson community participated in Real Men Read at PES. The students were very excited to have these guest readers. March 4th was Career Day at PES. Students dressed what they are thinking about at this time in their life. We had 24-plus parents and community members presenting about their own career. Classes were able to rotate through 5 sessions. A big thank you to all who participated in sharing their career with PES students. PES kicked off their annual Cookie Dough fundraiser, and there's talk of replacing some of the playground equipment on the front playground, purchasing some new library books, and planning for materials needed for after-school clubs that will start up again next year. Jump Rope for Heart was kicked off today with an assembly about jumping rope. All proceeds will go to the American Heart Association. For the Poquoson Middle School, the PMS Library will sponsor book giveaway events on March 29th for 8th graders and then April 29th for 6th and 7th graders. Every PMS student will have the opportunity to choose a free book to keep for their home collection. Another big upcoming event to look forward to is the Spring Book Fair, which is scheduled for April 18th to the 22nd. We're also currently gearing up for academic career planning at PMS. The middle school counselors meet up with every 8th grade student and his or her parents. During these meetings, counselors review 9th grade course selections and help develop a 4-year plan for high school based on students' individual secondary goals. Plans created in 8th grade are reviewed and updated annually with the student's high school counselor until the student graduates. PMS would like to congratulate our February Golden Bull students of the month, Gianna Phillip in 6th grade, Jocelyn Hodge in 7th grade, and Alana Gragg in 8th grade. Poquoson High School has had a very successful February and start to March. Our winter athletic programs excelled with indoor track placing in the region and state, girls basketball advancing into regional play, wrestling winning the region championship and earning 2nd place in the state tournament, 2 individual state champions, and swimming placing at regionals to state meet. Our Scholastic Bowl team won our region and participated in the state event. Our chorus and band programs have also excelled and have done an amazing job at all of their assessments and PHS recently began the testing season by our juniors completing our writing SOLs. This week, we also conducted the ACE-FAB testing. It was announced this week that our Spring Fest will be returning the week of April 11th, which will have spirit days and activities throughout the week with the dance that weekend. As always, please check out the weekly newsletter, The Island Times, to stay up to date with what is happening at PHS.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to first thank Miss Edwards for all her years of work for the school system and for being able to serve the military families. And Miss Patterson, want to congratulate her for being Senior of the Month, and want to thank PHS Chorus for coming out and singing tonight. And Real Men Read, got to participate in that. That was an awesome time. I had the kids, they ask questions and then you read to them, you ask them about the book you read, so that was a real fun event. And Madam Chair, I want to thank you for allowing me to read the proclamation tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Goodell?
Yeah, I wanted to second on the Real Men Read. I got an opportunity to go into the primary school, and again, I think we have a lot of future FBI agents there with their questions. But it's nice to get back to some level of normalcy, to be back in a school. I always, as a former teacher, I always like to try to go back and do something like, science experiments or something to be involved with kids, and it's really good to see that's opening up again. So hopefully, there's more things we can do to bring visitors and volunteers back into schools and get back on our feet as far as some of those educational experiences. And on top of that, really appreciative of the teachers, staff, bus drivers, again, with navigating, the transition from COVID. The students are, they're, as I said, I have 2 students in the schools. They're coming home happy off the bus. They're seeing their friends' faces. They're having fun at school again. And I know it's not easy because there's always 2 sides to a story, but we're appreciative of all the efforts you do to navigate those waters.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
That chorus at the beginning, that was just incredible. We got some just absolutely amazingly talented people in our schools. It just shows time and time again. I'd like to congratulate our wrestling, girls basketball, track, and swim teams for just the outstanding seasons they've had. In wrestling, we have a little dynasty going there. 2nd place in state. Can't shake a stick at that. That's good stuff. I'd like to thank the calendar committees and the budget committees for all their hard work getting that done. I know that was pretty intense. And I also got to participate in the Real Men Read at the elementary and the primary school. And I'd like to thank Miss Knight's class for the thank you cards. That was really cool. And then again, just thank all of our teachers for everything they do. Y'all are getting a well-deserved week off here in a week or 3. And relax, enjoy it, charge back up for that last SOL run.
Thank you. Mr. Childers?
I'd like to congratulate all the activities that I read off. We've done really good in Poquoson, it sounds like. Congratulate Ms. Edwards for helping us out, Ms. Patterson for being Student of the Month, and then my father-in-law got to do Career Day, and so did one of my co-workers. And they had a blast, and when my kids came home, all of them were talking about Career Day and all the people who came in, so they had a blast too. So I'd like to thank everybody who participated in Career Day and all the teachers and principals and staff members that allowed that to happen.
Yeah, the Real Men Read program, I've been doing that for years. It's always a fun thing. The advice that I gave some of the men that arrived to school that morning, if you go to grab a Dr. Seuss book, you better prep it in advance because the kids actually probably know it better than the reader does at times. I find it pretty comical that Mr. Tillett was a substitute for the chorus. I'm sure anybody that could step in that room could do a good job, as talented as our singers are. So I think he probably cherry-picked that opportunity.
I taught them that song that day.
There's no doubt in my mind. Continued thanks to our Poquoson Educational Foundation. The many women and men in that program work tirelessly behind the scenes. You know, they're working on grants. They're donating their time. Monthly. They do an exceptional job helping raise funds for our school system. And I just want to make sure that they understand how appreciative that we are of them and all of their efforts. And this Saturday is the Battle of the Books for the elementary school team, and 4 fourth graders and 2 fifth graders, one of which is my daughter. We'll be heading to Williamsburg, so we're excited about the Battle of the Books. And I found it pretty incredible. One of the things is they have to read 12 books. It's a huge selection process. Miss Keener and her staff do an incredible job with those students. And the students that tried out, every one of them were incredibly talented. I'm not sure I've read 12 books in quite a while, and they read it in a couple-month period. So kudos to our team and wishing them the best of luck on Saturday.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. I agree with what everyone else has said tonight. Patrick, your reading about spring, I'm so glad that spring is here. Our winter sports did great. I'm excited that spring sports are starting tomorrow. I know baseball and soccer kick off, and I cannot wait for it. No, not only did Mr. Tillett teach, I understand that Mr. Pappas has been driving a bus, so we appreciate that. That's awesome. I'm a little busy during the week, but anybody has some more time, I'm sure we could find some folks. Thank you all for everything tonight. And with that, I will ask, is there any material for? Okay, well, that is all then. I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting for the evening. Thank you all.